Greetings and welcome to our lesson on database security. My name is Laxmo Chuta and I've been taking you through this course, Database Management and Administration. So today we want to look at the aspect relating to the protection of information that is contained in our data resources or in our infrastructure that we use to store important organizational information. And I think the area relating to security when it comes to information technology, it's one of the most cross-cutting areas that you realize that network administrator will need to implement security measures. Database administrators will need to implement what? Security measures. Programmers will need to come up with what? Security measures. So you can see that there is a cross linkages of security issues coming from programmers, administrators, network engineers. So the concept of security, you cannot look at it from an isolated view or implement it from an isolated view. Say, my security that I'm going to be implementing as a database administrator is only concerned with the database without factoring in the network part, without factoring not even the user part, the social part. So it's an important aspect of any organizational computing infrastructure that has to be approached wholesomely so that you don't leave other aspects that will expose what? Your systems. You look at database security from an organizational perspective, probably just want to focus on the requirements of a database administrator, that he wants to protect personal information for employees and customers. He wants to protect financial records that are stored in his system. You want to protect production data. But if you overlook the security, the network aspect, security aspects of protecting the network, you might protect your database, but you might leave a vulnerability from the network side. That's why I say this has to be looked at wholesomely so that the security measures that we are going to implement as a database administrator, they will be comprehensive and you won't leave any loopholes to your system when you are protecting your institutional knowledge or your institutional data resources. So when you talk about database security, it must address some of the following key issues. One, security for data in the database, security for the system that we are using, the database management system, its associated applications, security for the physical and virtual servers, security for computing and networking infrastructure used to access the database. So if you use this approach, where are you looking at it wholesomely, you are likely to implement a better security solution for your database system than when you do it using an isolated approach. And why is database security important? Data is an important organizational resource. And just to demonstrate that data is an important organizational resource, you look at Alibaba. Jack Ma's business, it's run on data. You look at Uber. The owners of Uber do not own any taxi. They don't own any drivers. They don't employ any driver. What they have is is a resource or a platform that manages data. So this just demonstrates the importance of data as an organizational resource. You look at Facebook, it's a billion-dollar business globally. But what is their key resource? It's data. What is their business model built on? It's data. They are managing and manipulating your personal data day in, day out. They are providing them with data day in, day out. You post where you've been, what you've been doing, what you like eating, and they are harvesting that data. And what? Making use of it. They are providing you access to data relating to where your friends are, what they are doing, etc. This just demonstrates why database security is important. So imagine if that Facebook would not protect your login credentials and someone accesses your login credentials, how would you feel as a user, or how would you react or respond to someone posting on your behalf something else? So database security will safeguard us against this array of threats and protect what? The business as an enterprise from what? From these threats. So it helps us to safeguard what? The data that the company collects and manages. And it also ensures that that data is not compromised in a way that will lead to financial loss or reputation damage or decline in customer confidence or even what? Erosion of the brand value. So if someone accesses your login credentials for your email or your Facebook account, that will affect your confidence in using what? The Facebook platform. And that will also affect the reputation of what? Of Facebook. You look at Yahoo, it doesn't have a very good reputation because it has been, people's emails have been hacked left, right, and center. Well, I'm not saying I'm not saying it's vulnerable, but it has a reputation. If you ask your colleagues who used to have Yahoo emails why they abandoned using that email, chances are they will tell you my email was that this and that happened. So you realize what that does to the reputation of an organization. So database security is important. That one, it protects the reputation of the organization. It also protects even the users within the organization. It also ensures that when we want to deploy our systems, we don't run into failures because of security issues. It also protects users by ensuring that they do not have excessive privileges to certain information. You would want a student to access the marks that he got in the exams, the marks that other students got in the exam, those excessive privileges. So we want to limit or minimize that. And this is done by what? By ensuring we have the relevant security privileges for users so that there is no privilege abuse and also platform abuse. We want to manage our sensitive data. We want to back up our data. We want to ensure that we have no weak authentication systems. And we want to prevent attacks to our database. So when we talk about database security, 4 key issues are important that database security should ensure. 1, availability. 2, authenticity. 3, integrity. And confidentiality. This is the base of database security. Whatever security measures that we are going to implement, we should satisfy these 4 key issues. When we talk about availability, you want to check your bank balance. then the system tells you you cannot display your data balance at the moment, error accessing the database. As a user, you wouldn't want that. You want to perform a transaction, then you can't access your current account details. So availability, it's very important. Authenticity. You are capturing student records for an assignment that they have done, or you're uploading exam marks. You would want a system where everyone has access and is able to upload exam marks for students. This will open up avenues for forgery where students can just access the system and change what their exam marks. Probably someone had failed, he changes, and now comes up with a pass. So we want to be able to authenticate who is doing what on the database, who is uploading what on the database, who is writing what on the database. And this is what part of security. We need to verify all our users. Are they authorized to access and use the database? Is the data that we are sending from the database going to where it's supposed to go? Is the data that we are allowing people to access the database providing the views that the users are supposed to access? So authenticity is what is very, very important. Data in the database has to be authentic. Access to data in the database has to be authenticated. Data integrity. We want to ensure that the data in the database is uniform and consistent format across the board. You would want people accessing the same report from the database, viewing different data. The data has to be what? Similar. It has to be accurate and reliable across the board. It has to be accurate and verifiable across the board. So data integrity is an important security issue for the database. And as part of that, we also need to be able to report and keep track of all changes that has been made to the data in the database and who has been responsible for what, for implementing those changes. The issue I highlighted earlier where I said probably someone accesses your Facebook account and is able to probably, I know most people don't want, especially ladies, they don't want their date of birth to appear on their profiles. Someone what is able to access your Facebook profile and access what your date of birth, probably your email address, your phone number. That is confidential information for some that they don't want people to know. They are banking with a certain bank and people are able to access and view your account balances, or you are working for a certain organization, people are able to access information relating to salary that you are getting. You are at a hospital, people are able to hack the hospital system and see the kind of elements that you are suffering from and the kind of treatment that you are receiving. We wouldn't want that situation to occur on your database. So confidentiality of information in a business is very, very important. The privacy of users, the privacy of the organization is very important. So we want to ensure that confidentiality of your information of what is kept in your database is what is maintained. So these are the 4 pillars that we should remember that provides the base, or that when you're implementing security measures, You should just test or check that your security measures are providing this. These I won't talk about. I just added them here so that you can read through them. The issue of need to security concerns, third-party security solutions. These are I will leave out for you to read so that you will get an appreciation of these issues. What I want to talk about is what the database security controls that we can implement to support or to ensure that these 4 pillars that we have here are they in our database systems. I think access here should change on this one as well. So what are the various database security controls that we can implement to ensure that our database are secure? We can implement them in multiple forms. You can have security hardening and access controls and database configurations, or at the same time. And actually having multiple layers is what is very important, as it also increases the levels of security. So when you talk about system hardening, this is the continual upgrading and monitoring of your systems to ensure that you patch any security loopholes that might have arisen in your system. So you are continually improving and monitoring your database system. Any weak areas that you pick up, you improve them and you harden them. That's what we are referring to as what system hardening and monitoring. So you might just say system hardening and monitoring. You monitor, then you improve or you harden your system. Database configuration. It is important that any database management system that you are going to implement is properly and correctly configured and is continually being hardened to take advantage of new security features that are being developed. And also, as we are configuring and monitoring your database management system, you will also be upgrading and downgrading access privileges for certain users. Because it's not every time that probably a user needs to have full access privileges or full or right privilege to the database. Probably sometimes you only need to have reading rights. So you continually configure and reconfigure your database management system according to the user needs at that point in time. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a resource management system for a college. There's no need for probably the lecturers at the university or at the college to have rights to write to the resource management system for the whole semester, yet the results are only published after the writing of exams at the end of the semester. So you give them the rights to write to the system as soon as the marking of the exam has been done. Once they have finished that, you revoke the rights. Then we talk about authentication. Every time a user has to log into a system, there's supposed to be authentication mechanisms that are there to verify this is the correct user and these are the correct credentials that are being used. To look at most systems these days, for example, Google, it now has multiple layers of authentication. You sign in with your password, probably it requests you to authenticate that you are the correct user by also confirming that on your mobile device or by punching in an additional security code. So make sure that your database system is what these authentication levels or these authentication features. Not just have a simple sign in, just have simple password and someone is in. So authentication is very important, where you authenticate that this is what the correct user. And some are now even using biometric authentication just to add in what a layer of security. When you talk about access control, access control authenticates legitimate users and applications, while at the same time limiting when and what they can access in your database. So when you talk about access control, it includes designing and granting appropriate attributes and roles to users. Like I was saying, relating to the example that I gave, where we were saying that you don't need to grant lecturers rights to write to the results section of the results management system for the whole semester. You design it in such a way that probably it automatically grants them the rights at a certain period when you know everyone has finished marking, and revokes the rights after a certain period when you know that by this time, if we give them 48 hours or 60 hours, they should have completed uploading the results. So access has to be managed and you have to be controlled. Who is accessing what and what level and why? Do the CEO needs to have super admin privileges in the system? Does the cleaner need to have access to the system at all? So you define your access levels as as part of implementing your security measures. Other thing that you also implement is auditing. You audit who accessed the what and when. Did that person have the rights to access that file? Did that person have the rights to write to that file? It's very important that you regularly monitor and audit your security logs so that you know, was this a person or was this a bot? Was this a person who was trying to access the system at this time? You know, probably your organization is on an annual shutdown. Then when you check your security logs to your database, you realize there were multiple attempts to access the database during that period when you know that no one is at work and no one is supposed to be accessing your HR data or your financial records. This you can only see when you audit your access records. Encryption, and this goes without, I don't think it needs explanation. Why it's important. When you're transmitting data over a communication network, you can't transmit it openly. It needs to be encrypted so that even if someone eavesdropped, they won't be able to read the data without the necessary encryption keys. Backups. If a disaster strikes, how are you going to reconstruct your system? How are you going to rebuild your system? If you are attacked by a malware, how are you going to rebuild your system? Backups allow you to recover lost data in the event of hardware failures, network failures, theft, etc. So it's very important to have backups as a security as part of your security systems. Application security control. This goes without saying. These days with a lot of applications, some of them are malicious. So there has to be some security controls to the kind of application that are going to be accessing your database. So these and other different security measures helps to manage and improve your database security, thereby minimizing unauthorized access or attacks to your systems. And what are the common threats that face databases or that face systems that we have to protect our databases from? The first one is you, as a user of a database. You are an insider threat Your irresponsible use will result in what? In compromising of the database security. You are an inside user. You are not supposed to be accessing the database, but your colleague somewhere has induced you by giving you some few dollars. Please get me the password or the username for this user. I want to do A, B, C, D. So the first threats for any system usually they will start from what? From within. So we have to manage this, and we have to be aware of this as a database administrator. And this insider has the potential to even release malicious software into the database system. Or it can be just an act of negligence where they make errors in data capturing or they make errors in sending data. So you have to be very conscious as a database administrator that sometimes the security measures that we are putting, they are for the people who are using the database. Some of these threats can be accidental, or some of these can be intentional. And these can be treated or not, it can be treated. The second group where we can bunch the errors into, we can say treat them as human errors as well. We have weak passwords, we have sharing of passwords, we have uninformed or unwise behavior, where someone is drinking his liquor at a bar and is talking about this new security system that we installed at our organization. Yes, ABC security. That is very, very dangerous behavior. While you are bragging about the security system that you have implemented at your organization, already you are informing people of the kind of security system that you have. So human error is also a critical issue when you're implementing or talking about security of a database. So hackers make a living by finding and targeting vulnerabilities in all kinds of softwares. This includes in database management systems. And all major commercial database software vendors and open source database management platforms issue regular security patches to close or shut out these vulnerabilities. So you will find that there are people who are out there who are always looking for loopholes in security systems to exploit, to probably perform their SQL injections. So you have to regularly update your software systems as a database administrator so that if the vendor or the manufacturer identifies a security hole, he patches up, you are up to date with your security systems. SQL injection, this is what the insertion of a SQL code or a string of data into a database that will query or end up revealing information that is not supposed to be accessed from the data. Usually this is done because there will be some loopholes that will enable this SQL injection operation to be executed. So you need to ensure that you secure your applications, even the code that you use or that your programmers program. They have to ensure that it doesn't leave these loopholes that will enable manipulation and these attacks to be generated. These buffer overflow exploitations, I will leave this one out for you to research on. Denial of service attack, I will leave this one out as well, but I will just tell you a story, or not tell you as such. I want you to go and look at how the denial of service was used in the I'm failing to remember the name of the country, where the whole country was brought down when its internet services and its government systems were attacked. Alright, I remember now. It's Estonia. I want you to go and look at how the denial of service was used as part of the attacks that were done on the Estonian government, where all services could not be accessed. So this can also be done on your database. But basically, I think the way the denial of service is self-explanatory. What you just need to probably understand is how is a denial of service attack executed. Then we have malware, viruses, attacks on backups. All these are common threats to database security system. So thank you very much for taking time to listen to this lecture. If you have any questions and issues, please feel free to engage so that we discuss. Thank you.